Hey guys, I'm back, and I guess this week's vlog, I'm gonna be kind of ranting about my communications class, which I know is lame, but I mean, I have finals next week, and I'm supposed to be doing this like project on hegemony and nationalism, and like I'm just not getting it. The word hegemony in general is kind of like a weird word, because I know in like the book or whatever. This is my Russian textbook. This is my communication textbook. So it's like social theorist Antonio Gramsci, I don't know, described hegemony as domination by consent. Domination by consent. So you're like willingly letting someone like completely take over your culture. Like that's weird, right? But I had this idea that I could like, contact some people, get like videos. Maybe they'll help me kind of figure this out. And so I had this one guy, uh, a professor, who was able to talk to me. Actually, I have his stuff right here. Jason Jurgo. He's like a nationalism dude, because nationalism, like American nationalism, actually a pretty big part of hegemony, because we, as America ourselves, like apply this a lot. We are patriotic. We're all everyone's like America, whatever. He kind of has this insight about it, like back then, like using the wars and everything like that, and the presidents and how they kind of push uh, hegemony onto other countries or nationalism or I don't know. This is why I'm making this video because I don't really get this stuff. Um, so check this out.
Hello, thank you for contacting me. I'm Jason Drogo, Associate Professor in the Department of Defense Strategic Studies at Missouri State University. I got your email earlier and I see you're interested in hegemony and nationalism. I'll explain these concepts with the use of two examples as well as evidence. Theodore Roosevelt was particularly effective with his walk-soft but carry a big stick policy. This holds true in relations with the country of Panama. On November 3rd, 1903, Theodore Roosevelt encouraged Panama to revolt against Colombia after they refused to ratify the Hay-Herrera Treaty, which would grant the United States use of the Isthmus of Panama in exchange for financial compensation. On November 6th, the United States recognized the Republic of Panama, and on November 18th, the Hay-Buenaventura Treaty was signed with Panama, granting the United States exclusive and permanent possession of the Panama Canal Zone. In exchange, Panama received $10 million and an annuity of $250,000 beginning 9 years later. Let's just jump ahead to the end of World War II. With Japan back against the wall, the United States had two choices to make. Either the United States could deploy troops on Japan's eastern coast, or they could choose to drop the atomic bombs. Around this time, Russia was wrapping up its military campaign and had a chance to help invade the island. In order to send a clear message to those commies, we bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, messed up, but it was necessary to preserve democracy and freedom. And there are other events that occur that our national government perpetuates, such as the opium epidemic and the war on terror. This all leads to the question, well, why is all this important? Why is it essential that the U.S. maintain its hegemony? And I'll tell you why. According to Bradley Thayer, a colleague of mine at the school, to abandon leadership would be a fundamental mistake of American grand strategy. In history, there's no parallel where the United States has made a titanic grand strategic blunder. The United States cannot pretend that by weakening ourselves, other countries will be nice. This implies an innocence about international politics that would be charming if only the consequences were not so serious. The U.S. has always recognized those threats and faced them down. To emerge victorious, the United States should have the confidence to do so now because the last best hope of humanity. Zbigniew Brzezinski, counselor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and professor of foreign policy at Johns Hopkins, had this to say: "In American hegemony will not involve the restoration of multipolarity, nor will it yield to another dominant hegemon that would displace the United States. The familiar powers of the last century are too fatigued or too weak to assume the role the United States now plays. It is quite unlikely that the European Union will become sufficiently united politically to compete. Russia is no longer an imperial power, and Japan's population is aging and its economy has slowed. Some would side with America if push came to shove. Indeed, any evident American decline might precipitate efforts to reinforce America's leadership. Of course, I'm a scholar, and I have to show the other side. Michelle and Anita Lazar stated the following things in Discourse of Global Governments: American Hegemony in Post-Cold War Era. In strategic terms, in the decades of Soviet challenge to United America's efforts to forge international liberal order ever since the close of the Second World War, the demise of the Cold War therefore offered an unpaid opportunity to reinforce as well as breathe new life to the principles and multilateral institutions of the post-war liberal international system under American leadership after 1945. And with the Soviet threat dissipated, new threats were required to provide definition and substance to the new international order. The new enemy was the threat of terror. Similarly, philosophy William Spanos had this to say. The consequence of America's intervention in Vietnam was the self-destruction of America's benign self-image and practice from the Puritan errand in the wilderness. The defeat, by which I mean the violence bordering on genocide, America perpetrated against another. This came to haunt America as a contradiction of its Redeemer nation. America mounted a campaign to create Vietnam and to heal the wound. Armed with an acceptance of pride, the American government invaded Afghanistan and then Iraq with the intention of imposing American-style democracy. The victory turned into the occupation of a world unwilling to be occupied, and the American peace into an insurgency. The specter of Vietnam began to reassert itself. The unidentifiability of the enemy, military victories that accomplished nothing, and body counts in this Vietnam.
So I know that's kind of like long and drawn out, but it makes sense, right? Like, America is like the leading hegemon thing. Pretty sure it's a word. Uh, and sometimes, like, in order for us to like have our way or whatever dominantly consented by other people is through military force. Like this one journal is called the International and Intercultural Communication Annual, points out that the remaining global, since we are the remaining global hegemon, we're in a unique position to impose our will on others. So we're like the world police. It says that being America means that you're free and we're equal, and that bringing that equality to others is a moral mandate. For we protect the people who cannot protect themselves, and that's what a country with wealth should do. And yet, like, the help that the U.S. provides often emerges as military intervention and occupation rather than government assistance. So, we tend to like actually, get to that point where our ruling class is literally dominated and forced upon other countries. But there's also the other side of it where it's not just reaching outwards; it's inwards within ourselves. I mean, we're a giant melting pot. We're all created from other cultures and everything like that. I'm Scottish and I'm Korean. My parents are both from their countries, and yet inside of America itself, we've hegemonized, and you don't see this mix of other cultures. You just see the American culture, the dominant culture, which is, being the best, having the fastest car, being pretty and flawless, and getting to the top, and that is our culture. That is our norm. Not necessarily that. I mean, just examples. And yet, also contradicting that, you can see that in some towns we have, little China, little Italy, and everything like that. You can still find, those small pockets of, diverse culture, regardless if something's been assimilated or hegemonized in some way. And even still, that helps with nationalism. Those people are proud of their heritage. They're proud of their own personal nationality, or their own personal nation that they're from. So regardless of the fact that they're in America and we have this dominant culture, they're still gonna outwardly, show and celebrate and tell their own culture from where they've been, where they used to live, what their past is. And I think that's a good segue into talking about this other professor that I have. She talks about the nuclear family, and how that's an American culture thing to believe. You see us like a white family, and we need to be the biggest and the best, right? And she does a good job explaining it. So let's listen to this real quick.
We'll be discussing how the typical white family plays a part in hegemony. When you think of the nuclear family, aka the white picket fence family, we think of two successful white parents with the perfect children who live in a great house. This is the social norm and the first thing we think of when we hear the term nuclear family. But now in society, when we see two different races getting married or two gay people getting married, we see this as rebellion. Society doesn't know this as a normal. An example of the typical white family would be Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. They are two people of the same race and successful. But in society, we break this social norm by adopting mixed kids. This is an attempt to set a new society norm. Another example would be Ellen DeGeneres, who was seen as an outcast because this is not society's norm. Although we think of the perfect family a certain way, society is steady changing and breaking down norms each day.
See, isn't that nice? She used people we understand, like, you know, Bragilina, Brengen, I don't know what their mixed name is, something like that. I'm saying, like, normally the norm, not normally, but, like, you know, the dominated social norm in our society has been the straight family where, you know, it's white and the man does the work and the woman stays at home, and it's you know, this perfect idea of our life, and that's a national idea, you know, and so when we other countries look at us, they see that, and that's how they kind of try to model themselves after. You know, I really love what is said by this Nico guy in this journal about journalism actually, but it's about hegemony in journalism, and but he gives a good definition of like a way that hegemony is kind of explained, because he says that one cannot understand the idea of hegemony. Common sense is always something which is the result of political articulation. Reality is not given to us, meaning that it's always constructed. There is no meaning that is essentially given to us. There is no essence of the social, it is always constructed. I think I repeated that. The social is always the result of hegemonic articulation. Every type of social order is the product of hegemony as specific political articulation. So, like, for me that helps, because it's like saying, you know, we're not all going to necessarily realize that, you know, hegemony is there, because it's just kind of an understood like law almost, because it just exists, even no matter where you are. You know, you're going to be influenced by everything, by your society and what you're surrounded by, and that's what hegemony is. You know, whether you can see it or not. Okay, well that's basically what I have. I hope that kind of made sense. I don't know. I feel like I kind of understand it more. I think having the other people kind of come in and talk about it, and then my own kind of just like random spewing of words, because I make no sense to myself or anyone else, for that matter. So we'll see what happens whenever, you know, this comes into play. You know, maybe you learn something new. That would be cool. So I'm awkward about signing off. So check you guys later.